The three basics. Everybody wants to be wealthy, everybody wants to be happy, and everybody wants to be fit. And I know there's a lot of virtue signaling that goes on, like we don't want money and, I don't care about being happy and happiness is for stupid people. Mm-hmm. But let's face it, like you want to be rich and happy and healthy. Yeah. Like that's the trifecta. Status games don't matter as much as they used to. In old society, let's go back hunter-gatherer times, there was no such thing as wealth. You just had what you could carry. There was no stored wealth. So wealth games didn't really exist to wealth creation games. All that existed was status games. If you were high status, then you got what little was available first. But even back then, you had to earn your status by taking care of the tribe. Now we have wealth creation where you can actually create a product or a service. You can scale that product or service and you can provide abundance for a lot of people. And that's not zero sum. That's a positive sum game. I can be wealthy. You can be wealthy. We can create things together. And clearly, since we are all collectively far, far wealthier than we were in hunter-gatherer times, wealth creation is positive. But status is limited. There's limited status to go around. It's a ranking ladder. It's a hierarchy. And so to rise in status, somebody else has a lower in status. Now, you can have multiple kinds of status, so you can expand some kinds of status, but it's not like wealth creation where it can go infinitely, where we can all be, living in the stars and moon bases or Mars colonies or what have you. So just realize the status games are inherently limited. They're always combative. They always require direct combat, whereas wealth creation games can be just you're creating products. You don't have to fight anybody else. Yes, in the marketplace, your product has to succeed, but that's not quite the same as invective against other people or being angry with other people or feeling pushed down or pushed up or having a beef with somebody. So I would argue that wealth creation games are both more pleasant, they're positive sum, and they actually have concrete material returns. If you have more money, you can buy more things.
Show me where you can exchange your status at the bank.
Exactly. Yeah, it's vague and it's fuzzy. Now, you see people get rich, they have money, what do they want? They want status. So they go to Hollywood, start starring in movies, they donate to nonprofits, they go to Cannes or Davos or what have you, and they start trying to trade the money for status. So, people always want what they don't have. And we are evolutionarily hardwired for status because, as I said, wealth creation didn't really exist until the agricultural revolution, when you could store grain, and then the industrial revolution took it to another level, and now the information age is taking it to yet another level. But there's never been an easier time to make money. Yes, it's still hard, but there's never been an easier time to create wealth because there's so much leverage out there. There's so much opportunity. You still have to go find it. It's not easy. It's not going to fall on your lap, and you have to learn something and know something and do something interesting. But nevertheless, it's possible to many more people. A few hundred years ago, you were born a serf, you were going to die a serf. There was almost no way out of that. That's changed. And so I would argue that you're better off focusing on wealth games and status games. If you're trying to build up, for example, your following on a social network and get famous and then get rich off of being famous, that's a much harder path than getting rich first. And then go for your fame afterwards would be my advice.
Well, a lot of people do that, as you said. It's funny how people who have achieved such a level of wealth, you don't think, why do you need the status? Given that most people use status to then try and cash in to achieve wealth. If you've achieved fuck you money already, if you're post money or asset heavy, as it's known, why are you trying to go in the other direction? Well, as you said, because we've got an illustrious history biologically of wanting status, and wealth is kind of novel.
It's new. Wealth is something that you have to understand more intellectually. Yeah, there's a physical component, more food, more survival. But to truly understand the effects and the powers and the abilities and limitations and the advantages and disadvantages of wealth, you have to use your neocortex a lot more.
Does that mean
it's not limbic?
The reason to play the game is to win the game and be done with it is harder to win and be done with for status than it is for wealth?
Nassim Taleb also says that there are two great addictions: heroin and a monthly salary. Right, and that's why you can't get rich renting out your time, because even when you start charging more and more for your time, it's this slow upgrade loop, and then you upgrade your house at the same time, you upgrade your car at the same time, you move in the neighborhood. You really also have to get used to ignoring your peers, or upgrading or changing the definition of your peers. There are a lot of people here who are poor here, but they would be rich if they were living in Thailand and Bali. And if they have the luxury of a remotely doable job, they may want to be living there and saving up money.
But the ignoring the peers is an issue, because the keeping up with the Joneses is a real phenomenon.
Yeah, envy makes the world go round. Right? If you're going to make money, is that you're not going to get rich renting out your time. even lawyers and doctors who are charging $300, $400, $500 an hour, they're not getting rich because their lifestyle is slowly ramping up along with their income, and they're not saving enough. They just don't have that ability to retire. So the first thing you have to do is you have to own a piece of a business. You need to have equity, either as an owner, an investor, shareholder, or a brand that you're building. The guy running the corner grocery store is working just as hard or harder than you and me. How much output is he getting? What you do, who you do it with, how you do it, way more important than how hard you work, right? Outputs are non-linear based on the quality of the work that you put in. The right way to work is like a lion. You and I are not like cows. We're not meant to graze all day, right? We're meant to hunt like lions. We're closer to carnivores in our omnivorous development than we are to herbivores.
Don't tell vegans that.
Yeah, sorry. Look, I wish all that stuff worked. I don't want to eat meat. Future generation will look back at us as worse than slavers, because of the Holocaust we're committing with the animals. But they'll have artificial meats that taste and are healthier, is better than the real thing. So, allegedly. But so, as a modern knowledge worker athlete, as an intellectual athlete, you want to function like an athlete, which means you train hard, then you sprint, then you rest, then you reassess, you get your feedback loop, then you train some more, then you sprint again, then you rest, then you reassess. This idea that you're going to have linear output just by cranking every day at the same amount of time, that's machines. Machines should be working 9 to 5. Humans are not meant to work 9 to 5.
No.
But really, today in society, you get rewarded for creative work, for creating something brand new that society didn't even know yet that it wanted, that doesn't know how to get other than through you. So the most powerful money makers are actually individual brands, people like yourself, or Elon, or Kanye, or Oprah. These are individual brands, eponymous name brands, who themselves are leveraged. Like you're leveraged. You have podcast media going out to everybody. That's leverage. The podcasts work for you when you sleep. They have knowledge that nobody else has, which is your knowledge is the knowledge of being Joe Rogan. I mean, who else is a UFC fighter and a commentator and a podcaster and a comedian and, interested in all these things and knows all these people? Can't replace you. So we have to pay you what you're worth. And
I never fought in the UFC though.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, sorry. Or you're whatever. You're involved in that whole scene. You just have a unique set of skill sets. So because of this unique, what I call specific knowledge, because of the accountability that you have with your name, because of the leverage that you have through your media, you're a money-making machine. I'm never going to squander my time for less than this. So if originally it was $500 an hour, then I upgrade to $5,000 an hour, and it's ludicrous. But pick an aspirational hourly rate. Aspirational. It has to be a little ludicrous. And then what I would do is if I have to return something, I'm standing in line to return something and it's below my hourly rate, I'll throw it away. If I have to, or give it away. If I have to do some task and I can hire somebody to do it for less than my hourly rate, I would hire them. And so I just became extremely jealous of my time. No one is going to beat you at being you. One of the things I like to say is find what feels like play to you, but looks like work to others. So it looks like work to them, but to you it feels like play. It's not work. So you're going to outcompete them because you're doing it effortlessly. You're doing it for fun. They're doing it for work. They're doing it for some byproduct. To you, it's art, it's beauty, it's joy, it's flow, it's fulfilling. You must enjoy podcasting. If you didn't, you wouldn't be good at it.
You would have done 900 episodes either. Yeah.
Right. If you decided that the right way to get ahead in life was to go write books, nobody would have heard of you. Chris Williamson's book would be a complete flop. That's not who you are. You're a podcaster. You enjoy talking to people. You enjoy interviewing them. The more you do things that are natural to you, the less competition you have. You escape competition through authenticity by being your own self. If I had to summarize how to be successful in life in 2 words, I would just say productize yourself. That's it. Just figure out what it is that you naturally do that the world might want, that you can scale up and turn into a product, and it'll eventually be effortless for you. Yes, there's always work required, but it won't even feel like work to you. It'll feel like play to you. And modern society gives us that opportunity. If you were 2,000 years ago, you're born on a farm, your choices are very limited, right? You're going to do stuff on that farm. Now you can literally wake up and you can move to a different city. You can switch careers. You can switch jobs. You can change the people that you're with. You can change so many things about who you are and who you're with and what you're doing, that there is infinite opportunity out there for you, literally infinite. And so it's much better to treat this like a search function, to find the people who need you the most, to find the work that needs you the most, to find the place you're best suited to be at. And it's worthwhile to spend time in that exploration before diving into exploitation. The biggest mistake in a world with so many choices is premature commitment. If you prematurely commit to being a lawyer or a doctor, and now you've got 5 years invested into that, you might have just completely missed. You might just end up in the wrong profession, the wrong place, the wrong people for 30 years of your life grinding away. And yes, the best time to figure that out was before, but the second best time is now. So just change it.
And also presumably kill things that aren't working very quickly.
By default, you should kill everything. If you can't decide, the answer is no. And most things you just be saying no to. Part of my keeping my calendar free is just by default saying no to everything. Do I want to create a calendar just to add your event, right? Or to add your need or your desire? One of the other things about, early on in life, you're looking for opportunities. So you're saying yes to everything. And that is a phase that you go through. That is the exploration phase. Later, when you found the thing you want to work on, you're in the exploitation phase. You have to say no to everything by default. Malcolm Gladwell popularized this idea of 10,000 hours to mastery. I would say it's actually 10,000 iterations to mastery. It's not actually 10,000. It's some unknown number, but it's about the number of iterations that drives a learning curve. And iteration is not repetition. Repetition is a different thing. Repeating is doing the same thing over and over. Iteration is modifying it with a learning and then doing another version of it. So that's error correction. So if you get 10,000 error corrections in anything, and the opportunities and the upside are nonlinear. For example, when you're investing, if you short a stock, the most money you can make is 2x. You just lose, if the stock goes to zero, you double your money. But if the stock is the next NVIDIA and it goes 100x or 1,000x, you make a lot of money. So upside because of leverage is nearly unlimited. Also in modern society, because there's so many different people you can interact with, if you go on a date and it fails, there are infinite more people to go on a date with. In a tribal system, there might have been 20 people and you can't even get through all of them. So modern society is far more forgiving of failure. And you just have to sort of neocortically realize and override that. You have to realize that you're much more running a search function to find the thing that'll work. And then that one thing will pay off in massive compounding. Once you find your mate for the rest of your life, you find your wife or your husband, then you can compound in that relationship. It's okay if you had 50 failed dates in between. The same way, once you find the one business you're meant to plow into and it'll compound returns, it's okay if you had 50 small failed ventures or 50 small failed job interviews. The number of failures doesn't matter. And so there's no point in being a pessimist. You want to be an optimist, but I would say you want to be skeptical about specific things. Every specific opportunity is probably a fail, but you want to be optimistic in the general. In the general, you want to be like, something in here is going to work out.
How do you navigate that tension?
I mean, exactly as I said, I'm optimistic in the general that if something fails right now, then this is a little woo-woo, but it wasn't meant to be. It was a learning experience. It was an iteration. As long as I learned something from it, then it's a win. If I didn't learn from it, then it's a loss. But as long as you're learning and you keep iterating fast and cutting your losses quickly, then when you find the right thing, you have to be optimistic and compound into it. So you don't want to jump into the first thing. You don't want to marry the first person you date necessarily, unless you got very lucky. But you want to investigate and explore very, very quickly until you find the match. And then you have to be willing to go all in. You have to be willing to move your chips to the center of the table. So both those approaches are required.
So it's a barbell strategy.
For example, we run on these 4-year cycles. In Silicon Valley, you go join a startup, you vest your stock over 4 years. That's the standard.
Okay.
In college, you go for 4 years. High school, you go for 4 years. Some things take longer. You have children, they hit puberty 9 years later. That's like a 9-year cycle until that relationship changes. But we're used to these fairly long cycles, multi-year cycles in which we are committed to things. You go to law school, 4 or 5 year cycle. You go be a lawyer, 40-year cycle. These are very long cycles. The amount of time we spend deciding what to do and who to do it with, very short, very, very short, right? We spend, 3 months deciding, 1 month deciding on a job where we're going to be for 10 years or 5 years. And because a lot of discovery is path dependent, where the next thing you find on the path is dependent on where you were on the previous path, you sort of start going down this vector that is a very long distance. So people decide frivolously which city to live in, and that's going to decide who their friends are, what their jobs are, their opportunity, their weather, their food supply, their air supply, quality of life. It's such an important decision, but people spend so little time thinking it through. I would argue that if you're making a 4-year decision, spend a year thinking it through, like really thinking it through.
25% of the time.
Yeah, exactly. There's the secretary theorem. I don't know if you know that one.
Is that
computer science.
After you've done this many people, pick
Correct.
the best one of the next however many?
That's right.
Yeah.
The secretary theorem is this computer science professor is trying to figure out how much time he should spend interviewing secretaries and then how long to keep the secretary. So let's say he's going to have a secretary for 10 years. Does he keep searching for, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 1 month, 2 months? What is the optimal time? And it turns out that the optimal time is somewhere around a third. About a third of the way through, you take the best person you've worked with and try to find someone that good or better. So by the time you've gone about a third of the way through, you have seen enough that you now have a sense of what the bar is. And then anybody who meets or exceeds that bar is good enough. And this applies to dating, this applies to jobs and careers, this applies generally. But the interesting thing about the secretary theorem is that it's actually not time-based. It's not based on 1/3 of the time. It's iteration-based.
The number of candidates.
The number of shots you took on goal.
Yeah.
That's right. So you want to have lots and lots of iterations. So in
Which
that
means
sense,
that you need to bail out quickly and you need to be decisive quickly.
that's right.
You need to take opportunities quickly and bail out quickly.
Correct. Like if you go back and you look through failed relationships, probably the biggest regret will be staying in the relationship after you knew it was over. It's like if you go to a circus and you see a bear, right? That's kind of interesting, but not that much. If you see a unicycle, that's interesting. But you see a bear on a unicycle, that's really interesting, right? So when you combine things you're not supposed to combine, people get interested. It's like Bruce Lee, right? Striking thoughts, philosophy plus martial arts. And I think it's because at some level, all humans are broad. We're all multivariate, but we get summarized in pithy ways in our lives. And at some deep level, we know that's not true, right? Every human basically is capable of every experience and every thought. Like if you find a mountain and you start climbing and you spend your whole life climbing it and you get, say, 2/3 of the way, and then you see the peak is like way up there, but you're 2/3 of the way up. You're still really high up. But now to go the rest of the way, you're going to have to go back down to the bottom and look for another path. Nobody wants to do that. People don't want to start over. And it's the nature of later in life that you just don't have the time. So it's very painful to go back down and look for a new path, but that may be the best thing to do. And that's why when you look at the greatest artists and creators, they have this ability to start over that nobody else does. Like Elon will, be called an idiot and start over doing something brand new that he supposedly is not qualified for. Or when Madonna or Paul Simon or U2 come out with a new album, their existing fans usually hate it because they've adopted a completely new style that they've learned somewhere else. And a lot of times they'll just miss completely. So you have to be willing to be a fool and kind of have that beginner's mind and go back to the beginning to start over. And if you're not doing that, you're just getting older.
Yeah.
Retirement is when you stop sacrificing today for some imaginary tomorrow. Okay.
Yes.
When today is complete in and of itself, you're retired.
Yeah.
And so how do you get there? Well, one is you can have so much money saved up that just your passive income off of that without you having to lift a finger covers your burn rate. Keep your burn rate low, right? A second is you just drive your burn rate down to zero. You become a monk. A third is you're doing something you love. You enjoy it so much, it's not about the money.
Right.
I live for the aha moment, that moment when you connect two things together that you hadn't connected together before, and it fits nicely and solidly, and it kind of helps form a steel framework of understanding in your mind that you can then hang other ideas off of. That's what I live for. It's that curiosity fulfilled. And it's what little children do too. So I like the model of life that the ancients had, the Greeks, the Romans, right? Where you would start out and when you're young, you're just like going to school. Then you're going to war. Then you're running a business. Then you're supposed to serve in the Senate or the government. Then you become a philosopher. There's sort of this arc to life where you try your hand at everything. And as one of my friends says, specialization is for insects. Right? So everyone should just be able to do everything. And so I don't believe in this model anymore of trying to focus your life down on one thing. You've got one life, just do everything you're going to do.